And it's Wednesday. It's Hump Day from Charlotte, North Carolina, live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Well, real quickly, I need to get to something real quick because the Baltimore Orioles play the New York Mets. They're going to start in about 10 minutes. What I want to do is let you know what the pros are thinking on this game real quickly. I know we're kind of changing things around a little bit, but I just want to make sure we get this one on record, win, lose, or draw, whatever, but at least you'll have an idea as to what's going on. Baltimore's 16-20, playing against the Mets 17-13. Now, the Mets came from behind. They won a 3-2 walk-off win last night against Baltimore in this interleague series opener. They cashed in as minus 150 home favorites. It also marked the sixth straight victory for the surging New York Mets. In this early afternoon rematch, the Orioles come out with their veteran righty, Matt Harvey's 3-2 with a 3.6 ERA. The Mets come back with their righty, Taijuan Walker, who's 2-1 with a 2.38 ERA. The line opened with the Mets listed as a minus 175 home favorite. Orioles a plus 160 road dog. Now, the pro money has poured in on those red-hot Mets, steaming the Mets up from 175 up to 185. Now, keep this in mind. Interleague teams receiving line movement in their favor have gone 59% so far this season. Teams receiving 10 cents or more of steam, as the Mets have in this situation, especially in a non-division game, have gone 60% so far this season. The Mets also have value because they're a favorite with a low total. The total in this game is 7.5. And remember, historically, low totals seem to benefit the favorites because there's fewer amount of runs are expected to be played, and the team that's going to score them is usually the better team. The Mets are 15-10 against righties this season. The Orioles are 10-12. We've also seen some heavy undermoney showing up, dropping the total from 8 down to 7.5. The forecast, 60 degrees, winds 10 miles per hour, blowing into home plate from left center. Now, both teams have been profitable to the under so far this season. The Orioles are 24-12. The Mets 17-12. Now, the interleague unders so far this season are at 60%. So the pros in this game, as well as the analytics, seem to be pointing to the New York Mets. So we wanted to get that in just in case you were thinking about betting that game, or maybe you weren't thinking about betting that game. Maybe it was kind of one of those fringe ideas of what game you want to bet on. Wanted to get that into the system. So just to do that real quickly. Now let's get back to what we normally do. Welcome to the show. It's the Sports Wagering Zone, but you can see the importance of getting that information out. Now, of course, once the newsletter becomes available, if we do it at all anyway, but if we do it and we do have it, we won't have to rush so quickly into this because it'll be in the newsletter. You'll have the information by say 8, 9 o'clock Eastern time. You'll have an idea as to what that early game or those early games are going to be. I mean, we're going to talk about it on the show as well, but at least you'll have that heads up ahead of time in case you're thinking of betting those games. So welcome to the Sports Wagering Zone. Like I said, we're coming to you live. We're right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your podcast platforms. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, whatever it is, you can find us there. But of course, we are on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. So thank you very much for listening. Once again, on that game between the Orioles and the Mets, pros and the analytics point to the Mets. But if you're going to bet the Mets, get ready to lay a lot of wood on that game. Okay, Mets against the Orioles in New York starting shortly. So let's get down to what we normally do. And what we're going to do is talk about what happened yesterday as far as the sports concerned and betting in these sports is concerned. In the National Hockey League, the favorites, they went 2-0 as usual. Like we said earlier, the National Hockey League, hockey has been big for the favorites. If you like betting favorites and you are betting hockey, you've been doing very, very well. So yesterday, the favorites again came back 2-0. It was a very light schedule yesterday, by the way. The Capitals were a minus 200 on the money line. They beat the Bruins 2-1. And the Jets, a minus 180 on the money line. They beat the Canucks 5-0. The unders went 2-0 yesterday. Unders now lead 50, almost 51%, 50.9 to be exact. First period unders went 2-0, and they lead at 51% as well. In the NBA, the favorites, they went 8-3, but that 8-3 was straight up. The underdogs really dominated last night. They led 6-5 against the spread. You had upsets by the Warriors, 4.5-point dogs against the Suns. The Pacers, 5.5-point dogs against the Sixers. The Grizzlies, 3-point dogs against the Mavericks. And the Magic being plus 15.5 against the Bucks. The Hornets that were 6-point dogs against the Nuggets. And the Knicks that were 2.5-point dogs against the Lakers. In overtime, these teams all covered despite the fact that they lost. Now, the favorites still lead on the season, but it's kind of been cut down to almost 51%. The overs went 6-5, and they now lead at 50.5%. So in the NBA, the favorites went straight up 8-3, but it doesn't mean anything to us. We're talking about the spread. The spread was 6-5 with the underdogs on top. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the favorites, wow, really did well yesterday, 11-4. There were only some minor upsets. You had the Cardinals plus 113 against the Brewers. The Phillies were a plus 110 against the Nationals. The A's were a plus 110 against the Red Sox. And the Tigers were a plus 115 against the Royals. The favorites now take the lead in baseball. Okay, the 283 to 239 straight up with 18 pick'ems. The unders yesterday went 9-5-1. The increase their lead up to 50.2%. Now, I know I've been talking fast. We got a lot to talk about today. The schedule came out for the first week as far as the NFL is concerned. We want to take a few minutes and talk about the PGA Tournament that's coming up this weekend. You got the Preakness coming up on Saturday. I mean, just so much going on. We have a lot to talk about. Normally, we try to stay within that 35, maybe 40 minutes tops as far as the show is concerned. Today, I think we're going to 45 and maybe even a little more, mainly because there's a lot to talk about. So there are two more baseball games that are on tap for today as well. You're going to have the Minnesota Twins against the White Sox and Miami against Arizona. We're going to take a close look at those games when we come back. We're going to take our first break of the day. Oh, we've been doing a lot of talking the past past 9 minutes, but you know what? I love it. I love every minute of it. No doubt about it. I'm having fun today. Today's going to be a real fun day. A lot to talk about. So let's get that break out of the way. We come back. We're going to look at those two games on tap for tonight. We'll let you know how the line movement is going, as well as in which direction the pros are going. So we'll be back in 60 seconds. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're here live in Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're also podcasting. Oh, yeah. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, just to name a few. You know, most of the major podcasts. I could spend a half hour talking about all the various platforms that we're on. But once again, I want to thank you very much for listening. Let you know we appreciate you listening. Really, totally, absolutely. That's why as soon as we found out that game was going to be on like 5 minutes after 12 Eastern time, first thing we want to do is get that information out to you just in case you were thinking of betting that game. Hopefully it'll guide you in the right direction. So at that first game, which is already going to be getting underway any minute now, Baltimore Orioles and the New York Mets, the pros and, of course, the analytics all are on the New York Mets. They are, if you're going to bet on the Mets, you better get ready to lay some very, very heavy wood on that one as well. So there are two other games on tap for tonight. So let's take a look at them, kind of let you know how they're going as well. Around 8:10 or so Eastern time, the Minnesota Twins, they're 12-21 up against the Chicago White Sox, 20-13. Now, the White Sox, they crushed the Twins 9-3 yesterday. They were minus 115 home favorites. That was a pretty good buy right there. Chicago has now won 4 straight. Minnesota drops down to 1-5 over their last 6 games as well. Now, in tonight's rematch, the Twins come in with J.A. Happ. He's undefeated this season. He's 2-0 with a 1.91 ERA. And the White Sox, they come out with their southpaw, Dallas Keuchel. He's 1-1 with a 3.79 ERA. Now, as we look at the line, it opened with Chicago, only a minus 130 home favorite, and Minnesota opened as a plus 120 road dog on the money line. Now, the pros and the average bettors seem to be together again. They're ready to lay the wood with the White Sox, and we've seen Chicago get bet up from 130 up to minus 140 on the money line. The pros and the public are on this team as well. The big advantage here, the White Sox are facing their left-handed pitching, and that's where they're good. Chicago is 7-1 against lefties this season. Now, over the past 2 seasons, Chicago is now 21 with only 1 loss against the lefties. They were 14-0 last season. 21-1 totally against lefties. The White Sox are 16-9 as a favorite. Twins 2-5 as a dog. The Chicago is 10-6 at home. Minnesota is 6-10 at home on the road. But the pros are also leaning on the under here. We've seen the total drop from 8.5 down to 8. So in this game between the Twins and the Sox, the White Sox, of course, the pros and the general public really love the White Sox in this game. They're both on it. If you're going to be betting on this game, I guarantee you're going to be laying some wood on this one as well. Meanwhile, around 9:30, 9:35, somewhere in that area, and of course, we're talking Eastern time, the Miami Marlins, 15-20 against the Arizona Diamondbacks, 17-19. The Diamondbacks, they took the first 2 games of this series. They won the opener 5-2, and they were minus 125 on the money line as favorites at home. And then they won again last night, 11-3, as only minus 115 home favorites. That was a pretty good buy there as well. The Marlins have now dropped 4 straight games. And in tonight's game, the Marlins they really haven't yet announced his starting pitcher, while the Diamondbacks come out with their righty, Zach Gallen, who's 1-1 with a 3.04 ERA. But the line, as we see it, it opened with Arizona, a very short minus 115 home favorite. The Marlins are a plus 105 road dog. The pros have really come in on Arizona. forcing the odds makers to adjust that line up from the Diamondbacks from being a minus 115 up to a minus 130, a big jump there, 15 cents. Now, teams receiving 10 cents or more and they're coming off a win, they're at 58% this season. Diamondbacks fit into that category, more than 10 cents. And of course, they did win last night. Arizona also has value as a favorite because the total in this game is low. It's at 7.5. Arizona is 4-2 as a favorite. The Marlins are 8-12 as dogs. The Snakes are 8-5 at home, and the Marlins are 7-11 on the road. So in this particular situation, the pros are on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Once again, to recap the 3 games for today, one game is already getting started. Orioles against the Mets. The pros like the Mets in this particular game, and the White Sox against the Twins. The pros and the general public on the White Sox to win this game against the Twins. And then tonight, Arizona over Miami in Arizona. So that's kind of a rundown on what's going on as far as the games are concerned. And just to give you an idea, this little method system, whatever you want to call it, the way it's working so far. Yesterday, we had 3 plays. You had Oakland against Boston. We had Oakland, and that was a winner. We had Baltimore against the Mets. We had the Mets, and that was a winner as well. And then we had one loser with Kansas City against Detroit. We had Kansas City, and Detroit won that game. So yesterday, out of 3 plays, 2 winners, 1 loser for the season so far. 110 games for bet, 61 wins, 48 losses. You're at 55.4%. 55.4%. That's a rundown on that particular situation. So anyway, that's the story on baseball. We have more baseball to talk about, but let's take a minute to talk about the Preakness coming up this Saturday. Medina Spirit, the really controversial winner, that's putting it mildly, of the Kentucky Derby, got post position number 3. It was made the morning line favorite at 9-5. Now, until a few hours before the draw, there was some doubt as to whether Medina Spirit would even be allowed to come in and race on this particular day after testing positive for those anti-inflammatory drugs back there at the Derby. But trainer Bob Baffert and the Maryland Jockey Commission, they kind of got together. They reached an agreement that would allow extra testing of his horses for all this day. Concert Tour, the 5-2 is the second choice in the Preakness, and Beautiful Gift, who's going to be in the Black Eyed Susan, that comes up on Friday. So that'll give you an idea. Number 3 position, they finally got together and said, hey, again, the bottom line is always cash. Okay, never fails. When they're talking about money, money always seems to rule. So they will be running on Saturday from the number 3 post at Bowie down in Maryland for the Preakness. So that's the story there. We covered the 3 games on baseball. When we come back, the big story for yesterday, of course, was and it's coming up tonight, is the NFL scheduling. We're going to talk about that, but it seems how we're still in the baseball mode. I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about the Dodgers and the Yankees and how they're doing as far as betting is concerned, as far as the odds and how everybody's been doing with those 2 particular teams. So just a reminder, you're in the sports wagering zone. It is hump day. It's Wednesday. We will be back right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you for listening. We're coming to you live right here in Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name them, we're there. Anyway, that's the story as far as that's concerned. Still talking about baseball. I know you want to hear a little bit about football. We'll cover that as well. But right now, I think we want to take a few minutes and talk about the Yankees and the Dodgers, okay? Because it seems like because of their recent slump with the Dodgers, they kind of created some doubts as to whether or not they're going to be able to repeat again as world champions as far as the odds makers are concerned. Okay. Most of them think that so far they've been a big disappointment, not because of their expectations, but also because the way they started the season. There's always a cliche, but every now and then there is truth in some of those cliches as well. But remember, one of the cliches, it's a long season and it's no time to panic. Could be some truth there. But more than a month into baseball so far, the Dodgers and the Yankees, the American League favorites and the National League favorites, are each really far from being dominant, and they're just struggling and fighting to stay over 500. So here we go. The Dodgers slide has been more costly if you've been betting on them, because they're a hot team. They were a hot team when they first came out of the gate. The Dodgers opened the season 13-2. Looks like there were memories of the 1984 Detroit Tigers, who started out 9-0, and they topped out at 35-5 after 40 games. Now, when teams go on streaks, people love to play them every game. Okay, and that's not me talking about. That's John Novello. He's this DraftKings Sportsbook director. He says, we know how baseball gets bet. At first, people were betting the Dodgers during that hot streak, Now, on recent trips through Milwaukee, Chicago, and Anaheim, the Dodgers lost 8 of 10 games. They're at 5-15 in their past 20 games, and they've left the Dodgers at 18-17, and they're in third place in their division. Now, in last year's pandemic, the Dodgers finished 43-17, which is a 71% winning percentage, okay? That would project to 116 wins if you played 162 games. Now, the odds makers, they opened the Dodgers win total for this season at 104, a number they already seem unlikely to even come close to. So injuries are one excuse. Cody Bellinger, the NL MVP last year, has been out since early April. He's got a fractured left fibula, and the outfielder might not even return until late in June. Dustin May, their rising star in the pitching rotation, needs Tommy John surgery. He's gone for the season. Now, they're an offense that averaged 5.8 runs in 2020. They tailed off to 4.9 this season so far. That's when the Dodgers have lost a major league high 10 games. They lost 10 games by 1 run, not getting it done. The Dodgers have been favorites in 34 of 35 games. They closed as small underdogs in a 3-1 loss to the Brewers all the way back on April 30th, and have lost 5 times as favorites of being minus 200 on the money line or more. So it could take 60 games before some teams get on track. The expectation here is the Dodgers will definitely turn things around. The Dodgers have to solve some shortcomings in the bullpen, but their top 4 starters, Kershaw, Bauer, Buehler, and Urias, combined to rank among the baseball's best starting pitchers. The time to start a turnaround could be right now, as LA opens that 9-game homestand. They're going to be against Seattle, Miami, and Arizona. Meanwhile, the Giants were 20-14. The Padres were 19-16. They now lead the West. The Dodgers are 3-4 against San Diego, and they haven't played the Giants yet. So see what happens. Okay. Now, the Yankees, on the other hand, they're minus 125 favorites right now to win the American League East. They opened at minus 175 at BetMGM. They didn't expect to be cashing and chasing the Red Sox in their division. Boston is 22-13. They're on a pace to fly over their preseason win total of 79. The Yankees, 18-16. After that 5-10 start, they had a win total of 95. So the Red Sox, they're the biggest surprise so far in the league. The Yankees are either, feast or famine when it comes to hitting, but it's a team that's really capable to get a run going and get going. The Yankees shortstop, Gleyber Torres, has one home run in 120 at-bats. Their first baseman, Luke Voigt, last year's Major League Baseball home run leader, is set to come back this week after that offseason knee surgery. I think the Yankees have got a few issues, and the bats have not really started to come around as yet. But I would think when it's all said and done, the Yankees are going to finish 20 games over 500. Are they good enough to win it all? Well, that far I just don't know, to be perfectly honest. The odds makers don't know as well either. It's a long season. It's no time to panic. So the top two teams on BetMGM's World Series odds board, they still remain the Dodgers at plus 325, the Yankees at 7-1. You don't get too crazy. You make some adjustments, but there's no reason to move the odds on a lot of teams in the first 30 games of the season. It's a long season. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. That's what they often say. So that's the story of that situation. I wanted to bring you up to date on that because a lot of people betting baseball. The Dodgers, you jumped on them early. All of a sudden, they kind of fell off the boat here a bit. Now they're getting a big homestand coming up. They might be able to put it back together. They've got the pitching, okay? Again, losing by one run many, many times. That has nothing to do with the pitching, has to do with the hitting, and hopefully they'll be able to get that back together, especially if you pick them to win the National League West. And same thing with the Yankees in the American League East. Now, of course, the NFL schedule came out. Every matchup from week 1 has been leaked out. You're going to find out more about it, 8 o'clock Eastern time tonight. As well, you'll find out exactly what's going on. But at least it gives you kind of a taste of what's going to be happening. So let's take that final break. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at some of those opening day games, kind of give you some thoughts and ideas what we think about them. Of course, we always leave the final thinking, the final decision, always up to you. So let's get that final break. We'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. We're back in the sports wagering zone for the final segment of the show, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina. I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Now, the countdown to start that 2021 NFL season, you can start right now. Although the full schedule won't be out till tonight, we still have matchups for week 1 and they're officially out. This year, it's the first time in league history that the regular season is going to be expanded to 17 games, okay? In the opening week, you're going to be treated to playoff rematches for real. New faces, new places, of former franchise stars facing off against their old teams. That's what's going to be going on. It's going to be a different start to a season. The season's going to start with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers starting their Super Bowl defense against who else but the Dallas Cowboys, who expect to have quarterback Dak Prescott come back this season after that injury he got against the Giants last year. So looking so far at the schedule, Thursday, opening day, September the 9th, Dallas Cowboys driving down to Tampa to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's going to be the Thursday night game, NBC. And again, football a few years ago decided to have one game as an opening day game. That's what baseball used to do, okay? So that's what they're continuing on with that because, hey, it gives you one day where you can feature two great teams playing against each other, getting some great ratings. And, of course, the networks, especially NBC, they totally love it. That's going to be the night game about 8:20. Meanwhile, Sunday on September 12th, the Jaguars go down to Houston. That's a 1 o'clock game. Steelers against Buffalo, 1 p.m. Then the Jets, they travel down to Carolina to play the Panthers. That should be interesting. You got the ex-Jets quarterback going to be playing on the team, and he's going to be playing against his old team. That should be an interesting pick. That's an early game as well. Arizona goes into Tennessee to play the Titans. The Chargers travel to the East Coast to play the Washington football team. That's a 1 o'clock game as well. For those of you that kind of take into consideration a team moving from the West Coast to the East Coast for a game. And not only that, but it's a 1 o'clock game, okay? So for them, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, okay? So that's something you might want to think about when the time comes. The Vikings go to Cincinnati. That's a 1 o'clock game as well. And then the 49ers, they travel over to Detroit, halfway across the country, to play the Lions. The Eagles, the two birds are going to be playing against each other. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Atlanta Falcons. And then you got the Seahawks coming into Indianapolis to play the Colts. What an interesting game that's going to be. You have, for the first time, you got Wentz going for the Colts up against, of course, Seattle with their stellar quarterback as well. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Browns, they draw the Kansas City Chiefs. And, of course, it's the late game. It's the late afternoon game. Browns, who are looking to contend for the title against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to be looking to get back into the Super Bowl. That should be a very interesting game. The Dolphins, they go up against the New England Patriots. We'll get to see what New England has in their first game. That's a late game also on CBS. Now, Denver travels down to New York to play the New York Giants. That's a 4 o'clock game. And then, of course, the big game that a lot of people will be looking at, the Green Bay Packers against the New Orleans Saints, afternoon game on Fox. Again, we don't know at this point in time who's going to be the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, whether it's going to be Mr. Rodgers or maybe Mr. Love. We'll see what happens. But that should gain a lot of attention. A lot of money will be going back and forth on that one once that decision is finally made as to who's going to play at quarterback. Meanwhile, the final game, the night game that day, you have the Bears against the Los Angeles Rams. That's the NBC game. That's the Sunday night game, the Bears and the Rams. Meanwhile, the Monday night game, the Baltimore Ravens against the Las Vegas Raiders. So now you got an East Coast team going out to the West Coast, playing in Las Vegas. That's the 8:15 game. It'll be on ESPN and on the ABC network. So those are the first day games we're going to be concerned with Going to take a look at them. We'll keep an eye on them. The lines will be out on them shortly. They're probably already out. You just have to hunt them down somewhere. You'll get an idea as to what the opening numbers are going to be, and you kind of take it from there. Meanwhile, let's get back to golf, because that's a big thing that's coming up this weekend, because it's the PGA Tournament. So the AT&T Byron Nelson comes back after being canceled last year because of COVID-19. Dustin Johnson withdrew on Monday because he thinks he has this knee injury that's really been bothering him. The world's number 3 guy, Jon Rahm, missed the cut last week at Wells Fargo, which ended his PGA Tour best streak of 22 consecutive cuts. Okay, nevertheless, he's the favorite. He's at 7-1. Bryson DeChambeau's at 8-1. Thought he had missed the cut at Wells Fargo. Flew home to Dallas, but then found out he'd made the cut. So he had to fly all the way back to Charlotte for the final rounds on Saturday, and he wound up finishing tied for 9th on Sunday. Jordan Spieth is at 10-1, and like DeChambeau, he lives in Dallas, and he's going to play in a tournament for the first time since the Masters 5 weeks ago. Brooks Koepka is 20-1. He also makes his return for the first time since Augusta, as does the present wearer of the green jacket, Mr. Hideki Matsuyama, and he is at 22-1. So that's kind of a rundown of what's going to be happening as far as the PGA golf is considered. We talked about baseball, the 3 games on tap for today. 1 game is already underway. The New York Mets against the Baltimore Orioles. The Mets are the team that were chosen by the pros, and they are really high. If you're going to bet on the Mets, if you did, I'm sure you laid some heavy wood. Meanwhile, the Twins play the White Sox. Not only are the pros on the White Sox, but also the general public is as well. Be prepared to pay some hefty wood on this one if you like the White Sox. And then finally, the Marlins against the Diamondbacks. The pros and the analytics are on the Diamondbacks in that particular game. So that's the story. It's been a very busy day today. A lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. You got races, you got golf, you got baseball, you got to deal with the schedule coming out so you can start planning your game total situation. We still don't know what's going to happen with Mr. Rogers. Some people are saying he's going to stay. Other people are saying he's going to be gone. So you have to kind of make a decision there, because here's a chance for you to middle a situation. If you take Denver, they're at 8.5. If you take Denver to go over 8.5, and then you take Green Bay to go under their total, there's a good possibility, if everything turns around and he winds up going to Denver, that you could be right in the middle and winning on both ends. Just something to think about. Now, a lot of houses I know, they've taken these 2 teams off the board. But if you can get in there and look into that situation, it may not be a bad idea. We're not talking about laying a lot of money, because you can have some really great odds. So, just drop a few bucks on it. Be something interesting to look at. And if it works out that way, you'll be doing very, very well. And of course, if it doesn't happen, there's always that possibility that those things will actually happen. Okay, that Denver will win more than 8.5 games, and maybe Green Bay will lose less than 12.5 games. There's always that possibility, because the team's going to be in disarray. There's guys going to be mad at him. There are people going to be going along with him. There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on in that locker room. Love to be a fly on the wall when they first get together for the first time, if at all. Okay. Well, that's the story so far today. Thank you very much for listening. Want to keep you in mind that this is the Sports Wagering Zone. We come to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. And once again, we didn't talk about it, but quickly just to tell you, we're talking about getting together and having this newsletter. And you would have seen the big advantage you would have by having the newsletter, especially in that early game that started at 12:10. This way, by 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, you would more than likely have the choices that the pros run any early games, so you can start plotting that game, if at all, if you were thinking of betting it. So give you an idea. So if you're interested, send us an email. Send it to the sportswageringzone@gmail.com. All you have to do is say, yes, I'm interested. That's all we need to know. Okay. Anyway, thanks again for listening. Have a very, very good day. It's hump day. It's Wednesday, getting to the top of the mountain. Now we're going on our way down, getting ready to come to the end of the week, and of course the great weekend up ahead. So thanks again for listening. Enjoy the day. If you're betting today, I hope you have a very profitable day as well. So until tomorrow at noon, I'm Chris Pardo. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on this I-95 Sports Network at 12 noon Eastern Time. Till then, goodbye, everybody.